Hello everybody. It's been a minute since we've done one of these, but in today's episode we're gonna recap what actually happened, what went down in the summer beta of 2021. So let's find out if what happens in beta stays in beta. So to start, this is actually like the first beta I actually kind of partook in. Like I have been playing during other betas, of course, but those usually have been very content specific, doing content expansions, stuff of that nature. So I never actually went into them just because of spoilers reason. And the idea of just testing stuff out never really appealed to me. So yeah, I never really actually went into betas up until now, especially since I now have a platform that I could share information with people. So I took advantage of it and actually went in there, checked out the new character revamps, checked out some of the changes. And it was really cool just seeing that stuff beforehand, before it actually hits the main game. So speaking of revamps, let's recap those really quick. I do have a video on each of the classes that's going through a major revamp. They're like an hour long. They were pretty much a deep dive of the character and their changes. So if you haven't checked those out, they're on the channel. And on a side note, they've actually been doing pretty well in terms of views. So definitely people super interested of what's happening to these classes. The Annie, the Craw, the Annie, and the Sakura. Overall, I'm just super happy to be able to get this info out for you guys. A big reason why I make this content is just this is the content I wish that was out there when I'm looking for it. So glad you guys are enjoying it. But let's get right to it. To boot, I think they did a very good job with all three of the revamps, and I think they really hit their mark with what they wanted to do with each of the classes. A big goal of theirs was just to make these classes more dynamic and ultimately more fun, which I think they did. These changes definitely don't feel like nerfs at all. They feel like an evolution of the class, which is a big plus and ultimately what we want to see when they do these updates. Just fresh new ways to play what you're familiar with. For example, the Annie. The Annie has always been kind of like this tried and true healer character, intelligence character. It's always been like the intelligence character. And for the most part, it kind of just stayed in this lane of just healing, support, and that was it. It's like the only real reason you would make an Annie, just so it could be the healer in your team. But boy, they really expanded what the Annie Ripsa as a class can do and offer in a solo and group environment. The dual modes healing spells was a big plus, a big change for the class, for the better. The Annie got a lot of mobility options, which I think it needed. Especially, the character has wings, guys. Like, come on. It's got to be a mobile character with those wings. With the chance build, it just became like this huge, heavy-hitting powerhouse. And the agility build, definitely quirky, interesting, but it's still fun. I think playing with the giant flask has a lot of potential. Definitely not disappointed with their approach on how they handle the evolution of this class. So if you play any Ripsa or interested in playing one, definitely go check out the hands-on impressions video just to get all the details on it. The next class is the Sakura, which is, I was surprised. I had a lot of fun with it. Turns out I like kicking people using that Sakura's foot. I had a lot of fun using that spell. But if you guys seen the video, you guys know the agility Sakura kind of takes the cake for me. The new light speed spell was so much fun to use. I had just a blast just sipping everywhere. And even though I'm not that familiar with Sakura, I do feel like the class became a lot more open, a lot more accessible. Yeah, it lost its kind of like tried and true vitality build. It's supposed to tank hits. But honestly, I would take this new Sakura over like the old tanky Sakura but it did keep some of its kind of tanky attributes or elements. I think the Earth Sakura is gonna be so hard to take down. It has a lot of sustain. It has shields. If you still want to play that tanky Sakura, I think the Earth build definitely is gonna be the one for you. Actually, the only big difference really is you are not gonna see those giant vitality numbers on it, like having like 5k HP on the Sakura. But I really do think the Earth Sac keeps that kind of classic tanky spirit alive. Let's talk about the agility Sakura for a little bit. And yeah, so this build is going to be all about mobility, options, being all over the map, being able to get here, being able to get over there. It's a lot of fun. This is the build I had a lot of fun with. And lastly, the chance build. So this was supposed to be like the damage build. I didn't really feel like it was doing anything more than the other classes were doing. But my biggest takeaway was like if you're gonna be playing solo, I think this would be the way to go, just because you could self buff. Overall, my impressions of the new Sakura were positive. And lastly, the Craw. So the new Fire Craw, definitely a beast and a monster. The whole synergy that it has with its AoE spells and the beacons, and be able to create like this network on the field that you could take advantage of and just bombard the field with all your different spells. It was crazy and it was fun and definitely a blast. Something like this is what the crowd really needed. Something just to refresh the class, a new approach on how to play the class, and again they hit this on its mark. No pun intended. Actually, thinking about it now, if you guys seen my my Dofus Touch class video, when it came to the section where I had to talk about the Craw, I literally had nothing to say about it other than it shoots arrows at long range, and that was it. But boy, it's so much more dynamic now. So even though I was impressed by the intelligence build, I had a lot of fun with the agility build. I thought the whole theme of being a hunter and kind of paralyzing your prey and to capture it was pretty cool. And again, it's just another fresh take on the Craw as a class. So I was just so happy to see those themes just translate into gameplay. But with that being said, I did have an issue with the Earth branch of the Craw. So thematically, the Earth Craw is supposed to be kind of like your sniper build, kind of like you have one target and it's your job to take down that one target. So its spells revolve around on single target, hitting a single target really hard. But yeah, I don't know. There was something with it that just didn't connect with me. It felt very underwhelming, especially since it revolves around this whole guardian state and it's supposed to like buff your spells when you're in it. But being under the guardian state, I felt like it put me at such a disadvantage. Like I didn't want to use the spell at all. Like even the perks it was giving me, I feel like it just wasn't worth it. And being the Earth build, I would imagine it was going to be like the hard hitting build, but no, even that I feel like the damage was kind of lacking with the Earth spells. It has this whole gimmick where like the more you use the spell, the more damage it starts accumulating. And I just wasn't a fan of it because like after seeing the intelligence and the air build, those branches off rip, they're hitting pretty hard without this whole gimmick of like building up your damage. Definitely feel like out of all the classes and all the builds, this is the one that needs to be looked at again. Ultimately, to me, it felt boring. It really isn't doing anything crazy or interesting. Yeah, I was able to get punitive arrow to hit over 2,000 damage. But then again, you gotta wait 6 turns to push those numbers. Yeah, so I don't know if it's just me, or let me hear what you guys thought if you guys gave the Earth Craw a shot. But the other two builds, the intelligence and the agility, A plus for me. I had a lot of fun with them. And yeah, if I had to redo my Dofus Touch classes video again, I definitely will have a lot more to say about the Craw and how cool and dynamic it is now. Alright, and lastly, the Dopples. This is another revamp I made a hands-on video on. If you haven't checked that out, I do go through all 15 Dopples and their spells and kind of give my impressions on the Dopples. But overall, they are slightly better than what they used to be, but they're kind of eh. So I did do a Touch Talk Radio episode back when they were talking about getting rid of these guys, changing them, or to just leave them alone. And I have been very vocal where I'm not a fan of the Dopples at all. But I think it's my fault, in part because I'm expecting too much from them. And I'll explain what I mean by that. It's because they are a level 200 spell that unlocks when your character reaches level 200. So you would expect that this level 200 spell would be this super awesome flashy spell that not only acts as a reward for you for your journey and your trials and tribulations, but also a spell that you would think you would be using, right? A level 200 spell for your level 200 needs. But this is definitely not the case if this is their idea of revamping these guys. They continue to be this kind of gimmick, kind of cute, haha, little fun spell. And really, I think this is what they're supposed to be. As much as I would love them to be viable at level 200, as much as I want them to be somewhat impactful in PvM, PvP, and really just be a spell that I would use like any other spell, right? Just part of my repertoire. Sadly to say, they are not. I've spoken about the Dopples before and how I feel about them and how they can be improved. Because honestly, like I've been playing this game for a little bit over 2 years now, and I've never once touched a Doppel. I never once went like, oh man, I'm missing so much for not leveling a Doppel. Not once. And even now, after seeing all of them and seeing them revamp, yeah, I definitely don't see myself leveling any up. Which a lot of them you do have to level to level 6 to take full advantage of them. Their damage does scale with their level and their HP. So really, it's level 6 or nothing. And honestly, truth be told, level 6 Kawit is way better than these guys. Yeah, like I just don't see people summoning these guys like in F3, right? Like fighting those mobs like let me summon a Doppel and really turn the tide of battle. I do see them having a little bit more use in PvP, but that's a whole nother discussion. I'm a strong believer that a spell should be effective in PvM just as it is in PvP and vice versa. So those are the Doppels and the revamp. Check out the video if you're particularly interested in a specific Doppel. So yeah, I went through them one by one. So you can decide if you want to level it or not. Okay, so we just went over like the major revamps of the beta and the update that's upcoming. But there's a lot more than just... So let's go over it really quick because some of the stuff is going to affect kind of everybody and how they play. So there are some other classes that are kind of going through not a revamp, but more like a rework. The Masquerader is a big one. I'm not too familiar with it, but a lot of the spells have been tweaked. So if you are a Masquerader, I would highly suggest you check out those changes in the forums. I'm not familiar with the class enough to know how these changes affect the class, whether they're good or not, so I'll leave that up to you. Some of the other classes did get a little bit of tweaks. For example, like the Osomodas, the Dragon, the Cabal and the Koala. They got nerfed a little bit, and the Boar got buffed. So yeah, I would suggest checking the beta balancing strength number 3 forum post for those. But another big change is with the Pandawa. So with this class, the vulnerability spell did get changed and, to put it short, nerfed. So this spell no longer reduces resistances. Instead, it's going to make enemies sustain more damage. And there's a big difference. So somebody by the name of Bunt, so credit to him or her, kind of went through the differences of the spells and really broke it down in terms of numbers. But in the end, yes, it is a nerf. So the new version of the spell is going to be around 16% less effective than what it was before in PvM, and about 23% less effective in PvP. So even though on surface it may look like it's trying to do the same thing, the whole purpose of the change was to actually reduce the effectiveness of the spell. And yeah, those teams, Team Pi, Team Empi. So this is what I call the Team Pi is what I call the team composition of Panda, IOP, Any, and Masquerader, which is kind of like the auto win team you see everywhere. Every time you look at a video of how to do something, it's always that team, which is super popular because it could just do anything, kill anything in the game. And I really don't blame people for overusing these classes for those purposes. But it does feel like Ankama kind of took a jab at Team Pi with these changes, because really this is all you see, right? This is all people use, and the whole point of having 15 classes is to have diversity and to have different team compositions. Though I do believe that a lot of it is in response to some of their designs, which could be a topic for another time. But ultimately, I think this is why people gravitate towards Team Pi. So with that being said, I do feel like this change to the spell vulnerability is going to affect those people who depend heavily on that spell to do achievements, do dungeons, and to one-shot a lot of things. Ankama actually commented here, so I'm going to read what they say here. So, quote, "Our goal wasn't to keep the values unchanged. In short term, we probably won't tweak this spell. To go into a little more detail regarding the change, we've been trying to get rid of resistance penalties in general, a process we had already begun with some other spells. This helps to prevent overuse, especially in PVM." End quote. I'm sure Ankama has a way to keep track on, what characters are doing what dungeons, and I'm sure Panda is up there. Personally, I always thought the Panda as a class breaks the game. And I've always said that playing without the Panda is like playing the game in hard mode. The Panda is so good that actually a big goal of mine is to show off dungeons being done without a Panda in the team. And I'll explain why I think the Panda breaks the game. I mean, the class wouldn't be so good if it didn't. So the fundamental design of Dofus is how you navigate the field, right? You're on this grid square. You have a certain amount of spaces you can move. It's very akin to playing chess, right? The different pieces navigate the board very specifically, therefore giving them a purpose, right? The knight moves in this kind of L shape. The bishop moves in this diagonal. The rook moves side to side, right? Each piece has a purpose to be there because they have a very specific role. So what the Panda does is pretty much takes that and throws it out the window by being able to pick up and throw things to wherever it wants and needs on the map. Looks like I'm getting into a little bit of game design theory here, but what I'm trying to say is that the Panda bypasses this kind of fundamental design of the game. The major part of the gameplay is positioning and using your resources to do so. Like, there are dungeon mechanics that just revolve around positioning. And a big part of it is managing your MP, your AP, taking into account your dodge, your lock. And the Panda just goes like, F all that. Forget the knight moving like an L. Forget the rook moving up and down, left and right. Forget all these rules. If your dodge, if your lock, the things that's supposed to keep mobility and navigation, F all that. If that wasn't enough, F your resistances too. A big part of designing monsters is, their stats and how tough they're going to be. And a big part of that is dictated by their resistances. How tough are they to bring down? And yeah, the Panda just goes like, F all that too. Especially in PvP. Like, you spend all this time on your high-end gear, kind of tweaking your resistances, exclamation your resistances, and the Panda just goes, nope. All that work just goes out the window. And if that wasn't enough, the Panda can boost its own resistances. A broken attack. I'm sure that spell's gonna be changed in the future, where it's gonna be damage sustained instead of your resistances going through the roof. But that's enough ranting about the Panda. A lot of it does come from the personal struggle of what it's like to do some of the high-end dungeons without a Panda. And man, it's tough. It's really tough. So, glad I got that off my chest. But going back to the spell change, overall I think it's good, because to be honest, guys, let's not beat around the bush here. A lot of Pandas are just vulnerability mules. People have a Panda in their team not because Pandas are cool or they could dish out damage or vulnerability and throw things around. And really just to facilitate some of these difficult dungeons and fights, which again, it's not so much on the player, but on the design of some of the stuff. Alright, so another big change that kind of leans into kind of nerfing overused things is that spells that grant AP are going to put characters into a stimulated state. So this is going to affect spells like Precipitation, Stimward and Devotion. So pretty much what the stimulated state does is once you're in that state, you are locked out of gaining any more AP. So pretty much the days of people lining up with their any and their seller and giving the IOP freaking like 20 AP, they're over. And I really do feel like this is another jab at Team Pi, since the IOP can't be under Stimward and Precipitation at the same time. So let's take a look at how Team Pi is going to get affected. So pretty much, going back to the Masquerader, from what I've seen, can no longer give power. So it's not going to be able to give power to the Yop. Its Masquerade spell, the amount of HP that's going to go down has been decreased. I don't know how much. But now you're not going to be able to have the 2 extra AP from the any. On top of that, the Panda's Vulnerability spell, as effective as it was when it was reducing actually resistances. So how much are these people running these auto-win Team Empire teams going to struggle with taking down these bosses in one shot? Will they be able to take them down one shot? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how people adapt to these changes. Overall, the biggest takeaway here is that the developers they see what's going on with the game. They see what the meta is. And they're definitely in tune with what's popular, what people are using, what people aren't using, what's working, what's not. It's a good thing that developers, they pay attention. Okay, so moving on from that, a little interesting change that they're doing. This just stuck out to me. I don't know why. The Calyptus stuff is now going to be linked to the accounts. So I thought that was interesting. So now it's going to give a fixed 40 PP. And yeah, you're not going to be able to trade it anymore. So I know people, they would just run the dungeon and just sell the Calyptus Dofus. It was a source of income for many. But I think a lot of people were taking advantage that you could sell it to the NPC for like 20, 25 KK each. So I'm sure people were taking advantage of it. So yeah, Ankama just responded by just linking it to the account. And that's the end of it. To wrap things up here, I had a great time on beta. It was so cool just be able to change your class willy-nilly, be able to scroll your character, and just buy a ton of skill point scrolls and just max everything to level 6. I thought that was so cool and fun. Wish I could do that in a real game, but that's what the beta's for. I did like how they did this beta-specific quest where depending on your level, you could go kill some mobs using the revamp classes, do some dungeons, and you get rewarded, which is pretty cool. I think you got like 2,000 gold teams, which is a little bit over $5 worth of in-game currency. The only thing I wasn't a fan of is the forced PvP. I'm going to talk about PvP a little bit here, which is, I'm not a big fan of PvP. I'm not a big fan of how they handle PvP. But forcing people to do PvP, it's not the way to go. Personally, for me, that was a huge turn off of me doing the quest. I'm sure for me and a lot of people, PvP is just not part of our Dofus experience. But since we're on the subject of PvP, man, PvP in Dofus it's weird. It's super weird. Okay, so I was on the beta server, and this is, the place where everybody just kind of gets together, right? All 5 servers coming into one place. I figured I'd go to the Coliseum, and maybe I could watch some, like, high-end PvP fights. Watch some, like, hardcore people just really go at it. And to my surprise, even PvP in beta was just... Well, Coliseum was just dead. Like, I went there a couple of times, hoping to see at least, some of the folks from the French community just go at it. And I was just super surprised that Coliseum was just dead. There was like 2 fights at most from what I saw. There were a handful of people just fighting, just right off the Village Sap. But I'm talking about Coliseum here since it was part of the quest. And yeah, it was just dead. There was nothing. Like, this would have been the place where people, would be, like, fighting each other. But, just... And from what I heard and saw, like, doing this part of the quest that you had to be in 5 Coliseum fights and win one was a huge pain in the butt just because there weren't any fights to participate in. So I definitely thought they could have omitted that part of the quest, that PvP requirement. People don't want to do PvP. Forced PvP is like the worst thing ever. It's even in the daily quest mission things, like win one Coliseum fight. It's so stupid to shoehorn PvP when people don't want to do it, and it's obviously dead because people don't have any interest in it at all. Yes, there are people who love PvP and they're hardcore about it, but that's just like a selected few, I feel like. And most of us are here, for the casual Dofus experience. And yeah, PvP is not casual at all. It's the opposite of casual. So yes, please keep PvP out of my PVM content. That is definitely one criticism I have. And I do have an episode that's going to be dedicated to talking about PvP and the problems with PvP in Dofus Touch and what can be done to improve it. Because I think it could be an interesting subject to just talk about. Because it seems popular. Like when you look at Dofus Touch content like on YouTube from other communities, Spanish community, French community, a lot of it is PvP content. But when you look at the hard numbers, it's only a fraction of people who participate in it. A small fraction. But alright folks, that's a subject for another time. But let's wrap this up here. I hope you enjoy the recap of what happened in beta, what to expect once the update hits. Beta is closing today, August 16. And I think it's fair to say that we should expect this update beginning of September. It's a lot of changes, as obviously it's very character specific changes, but it really goes to show like all the work that goes into tweaking classes, making sure they are balanced. I really hope it gives you a new appreciation and perspective about the amount of work these guys are putting in to make the best it can be. I do wish we were getting some sort of content update along with this, because honestly, this is only going to affect a handful of people, especially if it's people who play the revamp classes. But I do plan on doing a Let's Play series with one of the revamp classes. But because things have been slow in terms of content, I have been gearing up my team to tackle some of the F3 dungeons. So I'm getting close to getting my team's gear done and ready for that. Because like I said, I don't run a Panda or a yacht. So I got to be able to do those dungeons super clean. So I could get some guides out on those dungeons in the hopes that it would show people and be an example that you don't need to run Team Empire to be able to beat these things. And let me tell you, they are hard. Alright folks, hope everybody enjoyed this episode of Dofus, Touch Talk Radio. I've been your host, Challenger EX. Until next time, take care of yourself.